Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today I have the Rev Mark Hunnemann. He is the author of Casper the Ghost Friendly. And if you would like to talk to him, you can feel free to call in at 347-324-3460. Again, it's 347-324-3460. Or you can pose a question in the chat room and I'll read it on the air. Or you can Twitter at #Apple Capital. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hey, great. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Timothy. Appreciate it.
I guess to begin with, kind of tell us your background, where you're from. I know we just had the conversation a few seconds ago. You were in the seminary, in the Presbyterian tradition. So if you could just tell us to date, tell us about yourself, and then segue into how did you write this book?
Okay, great. Yeah. The name of the book, by the way, is Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes, and that really tells a lot, but I'll get to that real quick. And I'll be succinct here. Yeah, it is Mark Hunnemann. As German as you can get. And I'm raised strict Roman Catholic. And my mom and dad were wonderful folks. And I had wonderful siblings. And I kind of found myself becoming, I guess you could say, more Protestant when I was in college. I graduated in 1979 from college. Nothing unusual as far as paranormal or anything like that. And but went to seminary, which in the Presbyterian denomination is 3 years of hard work, and certainly not one of those internet things. It's 3 years of hard work. So got my master's divinity degree in 1985. Went to Christ Community Church as an associate pastor in my hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina. Was that for 5 years, and then we planned a daughter church, which I then became the founding pastor and pastored for 10 years, Christ the King Presbyterian Church. That was a joy. That's my main calling or vocation, I think, as a pastor, and an immense privilege. So that's what I have been doing for years and years. I am not currently pastoring a specific church because about 4 or 5 years ago, this is, again, bringing a lot of stuff together succinctly, I became first concerned and then alarmed at how this interest in the paranormal in general and in ghosts in particular had become so prevalent in our society. 10 years, maybe at the outermost, it was 15 years ago, interest in ghosts was only a lunatic fringe was interested in that. Of course, most of us, or a lot of us, all about once or twice in high school going out to the cemetery and messing around, but heard getting a Ouija board when we were growing up for Christmas, which is pretty kind of ironic. But anyway, from there, I saw also that now between a third and one half of Americans in 2012 believe in ghosts. And I don't know of any cultural pop idea that has exploded as fast as that concept of the concept of ghosts. The belief in earthbound spirits that usually if the concept goes, if somebody experiences a traumatic death, then that's normally the reason for them being trapped here on earth, their soul, that is. And I was concerned about that because, number one, how prevalent it had become, and number two, because I believe there are titanic issues that are involved. It's not just it has important implications as to how you believe regarding that, and if you really think it through consistently. But the thing is that troubled me as well was that 99% of the pastors, certainly in my denomination, were totally dismissive of this movement, this juggernaut in America, as well as the media. So it's a really odd thing that something could be so popular and yet so unknown to the people who aren't into it. It's really kind of an odd phenomenon. But in addition, I wrote my book, Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes, because what I wanted was to, through using science, logic, psychology, and all this sort of stuff, as well as a biblical worldview, I wanted to get as clear and as comprehensive an answer to the question, do ghosts exist? What I have become convinced of is there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that there has been a large increase of paranormal, or what I prefer to call it supernatural activity in people's houses. I talk to folks every day. I'm going to somebody's house Sunday to cleanse their house because of violent activity that is going on, what some people would call poltergeist activity. What I had thought, y'all, was I'd only seen in horror movies. That's what has become my calling in the last year or so, or two, since my publication of my book, Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes, is mainly spending most of my time helping folks who have supernatural things going on in their houses. And Timothy, you would not believe, I bet there's a fair number of your audience who are thinking to themselves, oh, wow, there's somebody who realizes and knows about that, knows how to deal with it. There's a lot of people who have interesting things happening in their homes, and they've gotten used to it, but they have no clue as to who to go to get help. If they go to their pastor, they're afraid they're going to be belittled, or he doesn't know what the heck to do, because like me, you weren't taught how to deal with it. And you can believe me, y'all, it's dangerous, because as Timothy alluded to, Casper is not friendly.
Casper not friendly. Wow. And taking your account of that, I know that you mentioned at the top of the show that make sure I have this understanding, you were raised Roman Catholic at the beginning, then you went into the Presbyterian church in the seminary?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay. The theology from the Catholic Church, from what you know, and the theology from the Presbyterian tradition, what is the church view about ghosts in general, if you can share that with the audience?
As far as official dogma, is the same. And as far as Roman Catholic dogma and Presbyterian dogma or belief, 99.9% of those two or all Christian denominations are in agreement. The Apostles' Creed, I think, would be the unifying statement of faith that we would all be in agreement. The thing that's important there is that they both agree as Presbyterians, and that is official Catholic dogma is that ghosts do not exist. Now, they do believe, as I do, that demons exist, but I do not know of a single reputable, judicious theologian, Catholic or Protestant, who believes that when a person dies, they have the freedom just to hang out here on earth without any accountability to the sovereign Lord of the universe. So I guess I've somehow been tapped by the Lord to try to address validity to. I'm in the paranormal community. That's what I think makes me a little different from some of the guys who are casting stones at the paranormal community and say, nah, ghosts don't exist. I don't believe they exist either. I think that all paranormal activity is demonic. Maybe jumping ahead of myself here. But I love these people, and they're my friends. And they refer clients to me when they get in over their head, and they're getting in over their head increasingly these days. So I don't know, I kind of rambled on that question, but there's really the same belief regarding ghosts. When we die, we go to judgment. That's the belief in Protestants and Catholics.
Okay. So if we talk about the difference between ghosts and demons, I mean, I can see them. We all have a very clear picture when it comes to demons. In your opinion, is there a difference between ghosts and demons? I mean, demons, of course, have a evil spirit, then versus a ghost who can be friendly, like Casper, or can be demonic in nature. And in those parallel universes, from the kindler or the gentle ghost and the demonic, in your opinion, is it the same? Is demons or ghosts, or demons are just demons in this categorization, me in this only category, and ghost is another. Does it make sense?
Yeah. A lot. Timothy, you had touched on the main issue, which I addressed in that book, and that is you'll see the shows on television like Ghost Hunters. That was the one that started it all 9 years ago. The Ghost Adventures, Friday Night, Paranormal State, et cetera, et cetera. These have millions of viewers, and that has what the issue at stake is this, and this is what almost made me fall off my chair when I saw it for the first time, was indisputable evidence of supernatural activity on TV. Some people might debate that some of it was contrived. Maybe some of it is, but not all of it. Some of it is real. And this is the first time that I've ever seen that. And that's why it got my attention. So to answer your question, a demon is a fallen angel, and it has never been a human being. When humans die, they don't become angels or demons. They go to their eternal destiny, either heaven or hell, immediately. But demons, their designated realm by God is the planet Earth. And on Judgment Day, they will then be sent to their eternal place of judgment. But demons are 100% pure evil. That's a hard concept to wrap your mind around. I have been attacked by them physically and in other ways. I got a target on my back because you could say I'm on to them as far as what they like to do is to mimic. They are experts at mimicking deceased human beings, making people think that they are dead human beings, and in so doing, deceiving them, getting a foothold into their life, and then causing all kinds of misery. And I could tell you story after story after story after how that has happened. They thought Aunt Matilda was dead and saying hello, and it turned out Aunt Matilda started oppressing them in all kinds of ways.
So I remember back in the 70s regarding the Ouija boards, who was part of the top of the better half of the last century. And I only seen it a few occasions that I was impressed. Something as a child gave me the instinct, something's not right about this. When I see a board that physically can move hands or that pushing forces, it is something wrong with that. That's like, in my mind, a channel of you really going out on the edge. Maybe some people think it's for fun, but when you see the hand movement, and maybe it's real, maybe some other forces with it, but it seems like you're going into a world that you really don't really want to go to. And once you get there, you got it. There's no way for you. There's no return. Is that your same opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. Very well put. You open up a door that is not meant to be opened. And when you start playing with a Ouija board, there's like common grace that covers everybody from God. But when we start using the Ouija board, we open ourselves up to the possibility of opening a door which cannot be closed unless there's someone who knows how to close it properly. And few are the people who know how to do that, including in the paranormal community. Most of the investigators, ghost hunters, as some people know them, have what I call demonic attachments. They go home and they have their own, quote, visitors in their own home. And it's becoming a very serious epidemic problem amongst them. But you're exactly right. But you know what is a problem, Timothy, is that there is a activity that is the backbone of paranormal investigating that is an exact parallel to the Ouija board, and it's called EVP collection, electronic voice phenomena. Probably a scene where the investigators get on there, they have their digital recorder, and they're saying they're trying to capture evidence that you can't hear with a naked ear. And if you can hear it with your ear, it's a disembodied voice, but you can't hear it and you get it on the digital recorder. It's called an EVP, electronic voice phenomena. And I've heard thousands of them, and it's really proved to me that there's a demonic voice behind it. But what happens is that if you look at the questions that are asked during a Ouija board session, is there anybody present? Is there any spirit here present? Please make yourself known. Those type of questions. That is exactly what ghost hunters do when they go into a house to try to help their clients who are reaching out in desperation because of what's going on there. But what they end up doing, and I say this with tears in my heart, is that they're incredibly well-intentioned, but they don't realize that they're either opening a portal to the demonic or widening the one that's already there, because they're the very dangers that are attendant, as you pointed out, to Ouija board use is exactly the same that are attendant to trying to collect EVPs. Some people at home who are listening probably have tried it. They get their little recorder and ask questions. Is anybody in this room? Please, y'all, don't do that. Please, don't. Because you're opening a door that once it's open, you cannot close. And unless you have somebody like myself who's trained. And most of the people who say they know how to deal with it actually make it worse because they use occult means to try to stop the occult.
Do you think all of these things really exist in a alternate state of our universe that by grace we're protected from? And there is really all around us, but like when you open that door and invite it, some things just not meant for you to go there. But if you go there, you got to deal with the consequences that, hey, this is not going to be easy. Maybe it might sound good, but if you open this door, you're going to suffer for a while, and you're going to have to need some beyond expert help to get you out of this situation.
Exactly.
I mean, really. Voodoo, when they're dealing with voodoo, and that's pretty from the South America and the Caribbean, what do you think about the voodoo type tradition? Are there considered portals, or they're kind of the sense they want to attach to people, or are they really inviting the portals, or is just something that is considered as a cult or religion?
Well, I think it would be considered a religion in a broader sense, the term, Timothy. As far as opening portals, which would simply be another term for opening a door for the demonic to be able to enter. Going back to what you said earlier, God in His love and grace does have like a canopy of grace that protects us. We all are subject to what we all heard of being tempted and so on. That's one thing, be tempted to do wrong, and we go with our conscience and do what is right, and sometimes we don't. But that's one thing, but it's another thing to have an actual demonic presence who is attached to you and has some, quote, legal right to be in your home because you have transgressed the spiritual law and have evaporated, so to speak, that canopy of common grace that was protecting you by doing an unlawful act, unwittingly inviting uncleanness into your home or into your life. It's a scary thing, man. And yeah, that's why I say that, and I wrote my book, is that the issues involved that people are struggling with are very real. And these are normal people in normal-looking neighborhoods and normal houses who either themselves or the people who lived before them did something they shouldn't have. This coming Sunday, I'm going to a house in which for 10 years there was very clear supernatural activity going on, but the wife was convinced that it was a family member, so they embraced it. But time in the last few months, quote, relatives started attacking them, scratching them, and so forth. Yeah, wow. And other things that were really horrible in nature, because what they do, they are very astute observers of human nature and how to utilize their ability to instill fear. They will find that part of you which is the most vulnerable to fear, and they'll latch on to it, and they'll start oppressing and causing tension between the spouses and so forth, and so on. So, but this Sunday is when I'm going to a house in a nearby city to help this family who for 10 years has given free reign. So it's gotten a very powerful presence, tentacles. And as a result, I might as well just go ahead and say it. Y'all don't know me from Adam, but This has not happened to me since I wrote my book a year and a half ago, but I was actually physically scratched in my back 3 nights ago while I was talking to this lady because they are so entrenched in there. They know who I am because they know that I'm one of the few people, by God's grace, who know how, by appealing to the name of Christ, Jesus, we know how to get rid of them. So they're trying to scare me out of there. So that's part of the role of being a demonologist / exorcist.
Wow. We have some questions real quick. We're going to take right after a station break for a commercial. A person is asking about, can you see ghosts? They want to know about purgatory. So let's take a 40-second break, and we'll come back and address those 4 questions. Again, Mark, seeing the ghost through the eyes, meaning through God's eyes.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a 1-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com.
Great, we're coming back with the program. Again, seeing ghosts through God's eyes, Mark Hunnemann. The first question we have, Mark, is, can people visually see ghosts? Is that a true fact? Or some people, I guess they're asking, some people, like the little kid in the movie 10 years or 15 years ago, was able to see ghosts on the full time. I guess that's what the question is.
The answer is actually yes and yes. There are people who have varying degrees of sensitivity to the supernatural or paranormal realm. The extreme would be a child who can actually see all the residents that populate the supernatural realm. That's a terrifying thing to be born with, but it's a mysterious thing, but that is a reality. The more important thing to note is that everybody, though, if they are in a residence that is infested, okay, now that's the term I would use instead of haunting. Haunting would imply that it's a human spirit. Infesting connotes that it's demonic, okay? What you would see is that, yes, and I have seen, like I said, other than before I had seen on horror shows, they try to make themselves look as scary as possible, like monsters and things that are flesh that are rotting. The simple answer is yes, is that the demonic, according to 2 Corinthians, it talks about how Satan can appear as an angel of light, which means that his demons can as well, meaning that they can show themselves as being the most innocent-looking creature around, a little girl with curly hair. So things like apparitions, shadow figures, black humanoid-looking things that people often see in infested houses, seen all of them. And the answer is yes. The empirical data is there for anybody with an open mind. Huge amount of evidence that ghosts are visible to anybody. You don't have to, quote, believe in them. They're so real that if you're in the right place at the right time, you will see it.
So what if you have a child that say that they see something and children, we don't believe them, or some people personally won't admit that they see these things? How do you know if they're telling you the truth?
That's all of our children. I'm not sure if you have any kids, but I have 3, mostly grown now, 21 and 23, but my kids were kids once, and having make-believe friends is just part of growing up. However, some of the time, those make-believe friends are not make-believe. And kids, for some reason, just like animals, appear to be more sensitive to the presence of the supernatural or the paranormal. You'll have dogs invariably in a house that's infested that will go to a corner or start barking at the TV that's off, and will bark continuously. And so, yeah, sometimes little children will reach out and say, "Little monkey boy over there," or something like that, because they present themselves in the most outrageous ways to kids and adults. And they can appear to a child, but choose to not be visible to the adult. They have that ability, as to whom the demons do, as to whom they want to see them. And
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say that oftentimes when it comes to the adults in the family, they'll usually, quote, pick on the one, because that will cause tension between one, because the other one will say, "Well, I never see it." Invariably, they do after a while, but at first it causes tension because, let's say, the spouse sees it, and, well, the wife sees it, and she says, "I think you can't believe you're not seeing this." And that's a design that is common. The demons, they hate us. That's a strong word, but that's fact. The demonic entities hate us. They are perfect evil. Their design, their one and only design, is to try to oppress and destroy human beings, because we are
kill,
the
steal, and
only,
destroy.
we're the only creatures who are higher on them than them in the ontological status or realm. And of course, when they were pure angels, and then they rebelled, and immediately Lucifer became Satan, and 1/3 of the angels became demons. So they have
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, go ahead and finish your statement.
I think I can't remember.
Oh, it happens to me too. Here's another question here about the dog. Can animals be possessed?
Yes, I've seen it. I've seen people, more importantly, I've seen people who are possessed. Their eyes will turn black, which is a horrifying sight, and you're looking into their eyes of eternity when you see a person who's possessed. But to answer specifically, it sounds unfair, but the whole thing's unfair. You're talking about pure evil. They don't play by fair rules. They will kill pets. They have killed pets, and they've killed humans. So they've killed a lot more pets than they have people, because there seems to be a restriction on the human order. But I have seen that with pets. It's tragic, sad to see them slowly just demise with the presence of the demonic, and how they will attack them, or they possess them, and their eyes will will flip out, and it usually ends in their death if they become possessed.
Okay. Another question regarding it. I guess from the top of the hour, they were asking about purgatory. Does purgatory exist, and what is the state of purgatory?
Well, that's a good question. Very good, because a lot of Christians who are involved in the paranormal community are trying to integrate their Christian faith with the belief in ghosts, and the way that they have attempted to do that was saying that the paranormal realm, where there's indisputable supernatural activity going on, is purgatory. But that doesn't work for a number of reasons, and I would like to encourage you. I've got a radio show myself called The Paranormal Christian, but even more so on Facebook. On Facebook, it's called Paranormal Christian if you want to check it out. And I have articles on there, and one of them is on this issue of purgatory. Don't want to sidestep the issue, but as you can imagine, it's been debated for a long time between Catholics and Protestants. So since I have a Catholic background, I'm sensitive and knowledgeable of the issue. So please check out, because we have an archive of articles, and one of them is my discussion on the biblical view of the use of purgatory as explaining the paranormal. The thing is, we got to remember that according to classical Catholic theology, the the purgatory is the place for believers where they are being purged of their sins. It's a place where people are yearning for heaven, for God. It's a temporary hell, according to classical Catholic theology. But all the data, Tim, and I'm talking about tens of thousands of EVP, all right? None of that gives any evidence of souls that are yearning to be holy enough by the suffering that they're having in purgatory in order to be able to see the blessed Lord Jesus. You will not hear any EVPs talk along those lines. None. So, I mean, that's just clear evidence that the residents of the paranormal are not interested in the person and work of the Lord Jesus. And that's all that would be on the mind of people in purgatory.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It makes sense. And where they can get this article again at?
The on Facebook, well, you can get it on the internet either as well. It's the Paranormal Christian, and that is, or my website is www.Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes.
Okay.
Is the title of my book, and I have a newsletter that I send out which analyzes paranormal issues from a biblical perspective. And right now, I don't know that there's really anybody else who's bringing substantive biblical theological reflection into the paranormal realm. So I feel kind of humbled by that position, but I sure wish there were some other people helping out there.
Absolutely. I have two other questions regarding his dad. So I'm assuming the question he's asking here, once a person dies, that physical body is gone. It's not going to rise up for any reason in this universe that it will come back to life.
Well, they've already betrayed secularist or anti-supernatural presupposition. If something can't be done, if they don't believe in the supernatural realm, if they don't believe in the afterlife, then of course that's what's going to happen when we die. The question is whether or not there is a supernatural realm, and what our presuppositions are what need to be truly analyzed, and that's what I think sets my book apart from others, is that I don't just talk about facts. I deal with people's presuppositions, the unconscious assumptions that we all have, our worldviews, which again we all have, and they're the spectacles through which we view all of reality. But very few of us actually think through our worldview and our basic assumptions about the basic building blocks of a worldview, like the nature of reality, the nature of God, is, according to this gentleman, he's assuming, it seems, the very thing he's trying to prove, and that is that he's a physicalist, and that is that the physical realm is all there is. Well, okay. I think I can show that presupposition leads to horror, meaninglessness in ethics, and just as far as our life.
I'm going to take a spin on his question when he said, I'm assuming that he means dead is dead once you're dead. I'm assuming that he's thinking that the person could go heaven or hell in that sense, but I think he was trying to say it's the body once that person actually no longer in existence. I mean, they're brain dead, heart dead, physically, clinically dead. That person is not going to have no chance of even coming back or having any movement as in this particular universe.
Well, the question, I guess, is there a distinction between a body and immaterial soul? And that's what has been the debate for millennia. Do we, the ghost in the machine type thing, man? Is there an animating force within us called the soul that is ripped asunder from us when we die? And I would answer yes. And of course, that's what Jesus taught, that when we die, our bodies do disintegrate, but our souls, which is the essence of our being, our personality, and our life, carries on after life and through eternity. And that we immediately stand before the judgment seat of God and either go to heaven or hell in our soul. But with the second coming of Christ, our glorified bodies, the kind of body that Jesus had for 40 days after the resurrection and before the ascension, which was perfect. It was still physical, though. He ate fish and so on, but he could walk through walls. So anyway, point being is that the heaven is going to be on earth, the renewed earth, in which our souls will be reunited with the perfect glorified body. But the intermediate state before that, our souls are in heaven, worshiping God and just enjoying other people there. But, I mean, it's a tragic. I'm not sure if he's saying that upon death we're annihilated totally, or if our souls go to heaven and that's where they stay. And if he's saying that, I agree. It's the idea of maverick souls bouncing around on their own, unaccountable to a sovereign God, that I think is repugnant both to reason and certainly to Scripture. I mean, you have people believing that Hitler, as well as little babies and kids, are bouncing around together in the paranormal realm with nobody holding them accountable. I mean, what kind of God is that?
Taking like Hitler, of course, in the faith we believe. Now, even Hitler, all the heinous things that he's done, and he confessed and repent at before his last breath that he was to have that opportunity. To look at Constantine in the 3rd century. Well, they're two different people, but however, once they made that, confess that creed and believe it in their heart and mind, spirit, that they could ascend into heaven. Is that always, even this person has done all these heinous crimes, if they do that towards the end, they will have the opportunity to go to heaven?
If they lived
a wicked life,
and then they go to heaven. Well, I think you have an example of that with the thief on the cross. But the point is, that's different from saying, okay, I'm 20 years old. I know what the gospel is. I'm probably going to live to be 70, so I'm just going to raise hell as much as I can, and I'm going to sniff as much as I can and sleep with as many women as I can and just really, and make as much money as I can. Not that there's anything wrong with money, but I'm just going to live like God doesn't even exist, a practical atheist. But before I die, then I will repent, and I can have best of both worlds. That's stating it kind of sarcastically, but a lot of people think that way, but we don't have that kind of freedom, because the more that we turn away from and snub moments of grace that are put into our life, that hardens our conscience all the more. So we don't really have the freedom, in a sense, to believe anytime we really want to. Well, if we want to, we will. But as far as wanting, even a person who's on their deathbed, there are the many people who have raved in anger and bitterness at God. I believe that Beethoven was in that category. I'm not saying he was wicked like Hitler or anything, but I think that we're assuming that there's a qualitative difference between the cross, who he had his first exposure to his Savior while he was dying, and there was a tenderness in his heart, and he said, I have no reason whatsoever to go into paradise, but I believe in you, Jesus. There's a difference between that and a person who, Stalin, who, would say, okay, I don't care, I'll kill 40 million people, and then at the end of that, I'll accept Jesus, and I know I'll go to heaven. That just doesn't happen, because true belief is going to show itself in evidence of faith.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered that very well, but
no, I'm going to take these last two questions, and then I'm going to talk about the Exodus and talk about more of your book. The last two questions: does dogs have spirit? Well, animals, I'm sure, have spirits and souls. And then another question, this last one, is regarding the white space, which I'm assuming that if you die, there's a long paragraph. I guess if you die, if you go on the edge of the universe of dying, and some people say they see this white cloud and white stuff, and then all of a sudden they brought back to our world. Your comments on those two things regarding the animals have souls, and on the white space category, I guess what she's calling or he's calling it, do we die and come back into this universe?
That's another article. I don't want to again to sound evasive, but 2 weeks ago we addressed NDEs, near-death experiences, on our show. So it's archived, but so it also is an article. I know the show was archived on the Paranormal Christian because we addressed that. And I have to agree, there's just too much anecdotal evidence to show that there is really something going on here. The thing that I find problematic, though, is when people come back from a near-death experience and then use that and say that it doesn't make that love is the only thing, and it doesn't make any difference what you believe about Jesus. That's when it becomes somewhat red flags should go up, because I told you before that Satan can appear as an angel of light. And I think that sometimes people have experienced him as an angel of light, giving them messages, because if the message is to go back and just love people, and it doesn't say anything about the person or work of Jesus, and I don't believe that that's going to be from God the Father, who was so passionate about the singular honor and dignity of his Son being what drives us in life. As far as the first question, yeah, I think that we're going to see our animals in heaven. There is a qualitative difference between humans and animals as far as God seeing us. Jesus said that we are of a higher order and he loves us more. That doesn't mean he doesn't love them. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing biblically very clear, but I think the assumption that I see is that we have every reason to believe that our pets will be in heaven, and that makes me happy. Yeah, as far as like well, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Okay. And that was for the pets and the white space, and which I'm going to have to take these two because these are really interesting regarding premonitions and reincarnation. In these spirits that goes out of the body, I'm assuming that they're asking, okay, first of all, do they reincarnate themselves in different bodies in a future? She's trying to tell me, or he's trying to tell me a story. He remembered things that he'd never encountered that happened in a different time period. Then another part of that question is regarding premonitions. I'm extracting it because it's pretty long. I love the questions. Premonitions, do you believe a person would have a sense of the future? So here's a thing of looking in the past. Someone have that question regarding the past. Are we reincarnated and put into those spirits go out into the universe and come back into another body? Then in the other sense of the question is regarding premonitions, they see things in the future that has happened to them. That's going to happen in, I guess, that deja vu moment. If you can comment on that.
Yeah. The answer to both questions is no. And I say that and I explain why. Hebrews 9:27 says that it is appointed unto a man to die once, and after that to face judgment. I mean, a ton of other texts, but that's clear enough. That piling up the Bible text, appointed unto man to die once, and after that to face judgment. And I mean, really, Tim, when you think about it, reincarnation is inextricably bound up with the concept of karma, and karma is antithetical to the concept of grace. And grace, of course, is at the core of the biblical view of reality and of the Bible. So there's no way that you can fit the concept of reincarnation into a biblical worldview. They simply don't mix, because the message from Genesis to Revelation is that we're saved by grace through faith alone. We have one life to live. And the concept of reincarnation, again, is that there's many lives based on the law of karma. Whether we are good enough, how good we perform is going to determine whether or not ontologically we are placed as a frog or as a human being, and what status as a human being. So the two just won't mix.
Okay.
And reincarnation, yeah. And as far as in the future, that is the prerogative of deity. Okay, the demons like to scare us by thinking that they can read our minds. They cannot. They also, according to Isaiah 40 through 48, cannot read the future. Only God can tell the future, because he's the one who's determining it. We might have some kind of intuition or something like that. And I can tell you this real quick, Tim, is that there are ways that it's called demonic influence where, and this happens a lot, is that people will have dreams and it'll come true. But what happens is that oftentimes is that it's called demonic influence. A step above just being tempted. They will project. They have the ability to project into people thoughts and feelings, particularly when we're asleep. We're vulnerable to being influenced by demonic spirits. They can put thoughts in there of the, quote, future, but what they then do is that they will orchestrate events in such a way as to try to bring that event about. Say, wreck of a motorcycle or something like that. But it's very clear that knowing the future is a prerogative of omniscience, of knowing all things. That's a divine quality. And
Okay.
even Satan can only be at one place at one time. He's not omnipresent like God. He's a creature. So his knowledge is considerable. And like when I do this cleansing Sunday, I feel like a little boy, okay, clinging to God, because it's only going to be by Jesus' righteousness and blood that I'm going to be able to do anything when I do battle in there. If I try to on my own, I'd be ripped to shreds. The weakest demon would tear any human to shreds. And I know that.
Okay. Taking advice of that, for example, we look at The Exorcist, the movie itself. I remember seeing that when it came out as a little kid, and and then they did the remake 10 years ago. Demons, do they get that physical with a person and with the person who's trying to exorcise them?
Does it get that physical?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an extreme case.
Okay.
The cases that I thus far have not been that violent, but they can be, and they are. The one, I guess about a month ago, a couple that I was helping, he was not a Christian and she was. They were praying for the first night together for this demonic presence to leave. Actually, they were commanding it in the name of Christ. He woke up in the middle of the night, possessed temporarily, with his eyes turned black and his facial features had kind of transfigured to a wolf-like shape, just barely discernibly kind of a wolfish look. But his eyes were black, and he couldn't remember anything. But what he was doing, he was beating on his wife when he woke, and she had this cross in her hand and touched his shoulder. And as soon as she did that, he stopped. This is the kind of thing that I deal with on a fairly regular basis. I have actually talked to demons who were residing inside of possessed people. And you want to talk about a bizarre experience. Nobody who's listening to me should ever do what I just told you that I did, though, okay? Don't ever talk.
Never talked, and you've been open at that window. I know that I was trying not to scare people regarding going in great detail, but any last comments advice that you can give people?
Yeah, this is a real movement that is grasping tens of millions of people. In fact, it may, if you have children, your children are seeing this on most of the educational channels, the Travel Channel, the Green Channel, and Discovery Channel, and so on. So the belief in ghosts is something that is spreading far and wide. My guess is that every other person who's listening to this, if not everyone, knows someone or knows someone who has some supernatural problem. If anybody's listening to this has any problems, or if you're confused about what happens to you after death, like if you get stuck, please check into my website, Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes. Or
Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes. Okay, and that is the website, Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes.
It is, and I have a free newsletter that you can sign up for as well if you can't afford a book, and it is cutting edge thinking about the paranormal from a biblical perspective. And my this closing statement is, just thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a very real, serious issue that is confronting our country and is changing the whole spiritual landscape of America. And I don't know why the church and or the media is so dismissive of it, but I really appreciate this time. It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Great. I really appreciate it. Again, Mark Hunnemann with Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes. Thank you for coming on the program, and I really appreciate it. And they can also get the information. Now, are your book itself sold through Amazon as well, or are they just going to buy it from your site?
Thank you for asking. I really do. It was, and right now they're having trouble with Amazon because of the distributor. So just please order it from off of my website. You can, if you want to view the book and see eight or nine reviews of the book, please do look it up on Amazon, but don't order it. Can't actually, because like I said, they're out of stock. But you can see the cover and you can see the reviews of it, which I think should help you discover it. But it is the only book out there that is a comprehensive analysis of the question, ghosts exist from a biblical worldview perspective. And I try as hard as I can to be as comprehensive as possible. So for those of you who are honest seekers for truth, hopefully it will be convincing. But you've been a great host, and I wish you all the best.
Great. Thank you again, and appreciate your time. I appreciate we went longer than we thought, but it was a lot of wealth of information that people could use. And again, seeing ghosts through God's eyes, Mark Hunnemann, appreciate you coming on the program. Hopefully in the future I can have you back on. There's been a lot of questions people were asking. So thank you again.
Yeah, I hope I can come back on. I think people get excited about, so maybe you and I can talk. But yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, bye-bye.
Great, thank you. Have a great day. Again, it's another production of the Core Business Show, sponsored by the Apple Capital Group. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For more information about equipment financing and asset-based loans, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. Or call us at 866-611-7457. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. And thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.